We're continuing with the text of the Sefer Mareh Yaakov. We are in Parshat Noach, and we're continuing with Perek Zayin, the 7th chapter, the 4th sentence, Pasuk Arba, Daled, page 21 in the section on Noach. We're going to go to the section on Noach, and then go to page 21. Okay. So if you'll remember from however far back ago it was that we had a class before, we discussed the number of birds that were going to come onto the teva, onto the ark, and we noted that the good doctor had a little bit of an argument with Rashi, in fact an argument with Kli Yakar as well. He noted that the number 7 in the pasuk that's talking about birds doesn't mention the word tahor anywhere, and he inferred from that you're going to take 7 of all of the birds, because birds lay eggs, birds are prey for other animals, and therefore you needed a larger number in order to populate the species, whereas Rashi specifically interpreted the number 7 because it was only associated with animals that were ritually pure, animals that were tahor. So he says that this must be talking about pure birds only. Kli Yakar says, well, you can't make a korban out of all the birds. There are some birds who are tahor, but you can't bring them on the altar. Nonetheless, his contention was it was still dealing with birds that had a kosher status, because those birds would be eaten more. So therefore they were required, but he was still dealing with the concept of the birds having to be tahor. And again, as we saw in the Sefer, that because it's not specified, Dr. Seaman did not feel that there was enough evidence to say that the text is in fact talking about them. So a major difference between him and some of the Parshim brought up in the last sentence. The concept was that we're trying to preserve not only the animals but their seed, what comes out of them, and their potential to reproduce. So we continue on with that theme in the next pasuk Zayin, Perek Zayin, pasuk Daled. Ki, because Liyamim od shiva, in another 7 days, Anochi mamtir la'aretz, I will emit rain on the land, Arvein yom, 40 day and 40 night, and I will erase with all that upright that I made from over the face of the ground. Ki, because this has a tlisha ktana. If we remember, tlisha ktana appears at the end of the word, and what it does is it focuses you to look backwards on what has come before. Because even seed became mutationally decayed compared with the original strain, waiting was no longer realistic and a reversal impossible due to the widespread effects in relationship with the end of the previous sentence, as indicated by the shape and placement of the reading mark. So remember that tlisha always comes at the end of a word, so it has to focus you to go backwards. Again, the shape also has the tail that points backwards. So you have to think back to the previous sentence. So because the last sentence is L'chayot zera al pnei kol haaretz, that it's talking about seeds, the because must also be talking about seeds. All of the species that we're talking about saving, we're talking about saving them because they had been corrupted from their original purpose. So this key tells us that not only had the species become corrupted, but the seeds had become corrupted as well. Liyamim, 4 days, with a kadma. If you remember, there's a combination, kadma v'azla. Kadma looks like a pashta, but when it comes in combination with the next note after it, an azla, it is a grouping that comes together. It trumpets, it focuses us on that word, with the understanding that it's going to lead into what's going to happen with the next word. Noach was urged to accelerate structural and other preparatory tasks, since the circumstantial conditions had alarmingly worsened. the waiting and postponement of the great event was only extended 4 days, as noted by the directional shape of the reading mark. So what we're saying is that the flood might not have come at this point, but because the seeds themselves had become corrupted and everything from there on in was not going to grow properly, the time period in which the flood had to come had been shortened. The Yamim Od, additional, with the Azlah, with the closing part of the phrase Kadma v'Azlah, 4 days additional. Several additional waiting periods were granted, including the time of the building of the ark, to effect a change in the dangerous trend, as stressed by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So, why do we have the word additional? And the answer that he proposes is that this is not the only waiting period that was granted. The waiting period that was granted was the time that Noah was instructed, the time to build the ark, and now this is another waiting period up on top of that. He gives an aside, and B, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, Amar Rav said that for several reasons a delay was granted. Reason A, those were the days of mourning after Methuselah died. So Rashi tells us that. Why do we have a period of 7 days? Because it's a Shiva. And the man who lived the longest number of days on earth, Methuselah, had died, and this was his Shiva, and the flood, the beginning of the flood, was delayed so to pay tribute to Methuselah. B, God allowed them long-term to improve. After that, an additional short term was given for correction. Shekavala HaMakadosh Baruch Hu Zman Gadol, Yachar Kach Zman Katan. There were many, many years that the ark was being built, and this was supposed to be an incentive for people to come and ask Noah, or Noah to canvass people to say, the end of the world is coming, what are you going to do about it? And nobody seemed to respond to that period of time, or the event that obviously was very curiosity-provoking, Noah building an ark, Noah gathering food, Noah gathering animals. None of that really caused anybody to come and ask, or to do anything about having coming and asking. So once it was all finished, then the change in the situation, stopping to do something, might have been enough to spur people to say, okay, now what? Or, okay, see, the flood didn't come. You did all of this preparation. Mm-hmm. Certainly something should happen now. And again, that period of time didn't spur people to question or to change their ways either. So that period didn't have to be very long before it would be noticeable. No more hammers going off. No more frantic collecting. No more any of that. What's Noah doing resting for 7 days? What's going on? And again, didn't provoke any questions.
You say it took a long time to build and get the animals. Do we have a number? How long was it?
120 years.
Years.
120 years.
To do all.
So.
A few generations. Mm-hmm. Somebody should have noticed.
Don't forget, people are living between 700 and 900 and whatever years. So it's not a few generations, but it is a full generation.
Yet when we talk about the Exodus and wandering for 40 years, and we say why 40 years, because that's till the generation is gone. So there's suddenly 40 years.
We're going to learn after the ark that nature changes.
Changes, okay.
Including the nature of how long a man is going to live. And the third reason that this delay of seven days was granted, at least according to the Gemara in Sanhedrin, is to see God gave them a taste of Shabbat, of the future world, Me'en Olam Haba. That 7 is a number of completion in Jewish philosophy, and they had the completion of having yet another Shabbos to contemplate the creation, the completion of creation, and why creation had happened in the first place. And again, that might have spurred them to do something as a tribute, and obviously it did not spur anybody to do anything. Shiv'ah, Yamim Od, so another 7 days, Shiv'ah with the Revi'i, excuse me. As we'll remember, Revi'i is a note that can stand alone or it can come with helpers. It focuses us on the word itself and can stand alone. The postponement by 7 days included a Shabbat, which is prone for revisions of past iniquities and for positive conclusions, as showed by the broad meaning of the reading mark. So again, Shabbat stands by itself as a testament to God's having created the world and then rested to show that the creative activities had stopped. So Shabbat stands on its own, so the 7 stands on its own, the same as Shabbat differentiates itself from the first 6 days of creation. And we have another note after this. Indirectly, God gave Noach a clue to give a final notice to people and to pray for forgiveness. However, Noach considered himself incapable of altering the decision of God. So again, we have this period of Noach not having any more tasks to do, and he might have inferred that, okay, now is my chance to go and do something now that I don't have another specific task to fulfill, but Noach showed no initiative. So we again come back to our famous debate when we first introduced Noach in this chapter. Was he truly a righteous person, or was he a righteous person only when compared to the people of his generation? And this quite obviously is a thought that tells us that he was more righteous than his generation, but not necessarily a righteous person who would have sought out to have the initiative to do something with this gift of another 7 days that he was given. Anochi, with a pashta, I am. The people should realize that I am the creator and leader of the universe, and the heavenly laws must be obeyed. Thus they might save themselves from the catastrophe and avoid the severe punishment, as suggested by the directional shape of the reading mark. So this is something that points forward, tells us that there is going to be something afterwards. The unity of God is going to be something that's going to continue, but the conditions of the world might not be something that continues. When we get to Anochi, when we get to the first word of the 10 Commandments, we are told that there are two beginnings to creation. There is a physical beginning that starts with Breshit, and there's a spiritual creation that begins with Anochi, with God having revealed Himself to humanity through the 10 Commandments. So Anochi has that sense of a spiritual beginning, and with a pashta, it tells us that God is there. He is going to continue the way that He is, but it doesn't necessarily. It also says that He is going to continue in His singularity with His laws and position intact, and those who have not repented will be subject to strict law. Mamtir, and this is a munach, a zakef katon. So mamtir, we'll remember that munach, which is a straight line followed by the line along the bottom, separates itself out from the word before, and then looks forward to the next word coming after it. Otherwise, I will prepare conditions for emitting rain, which, like wind, light, etc., will assume functions as one of my heavenly servants and expand the potential in fulfilling an assignment, as expressed by the shape of the reading mark. So God is going to remain in the old way that He was, with the pashta, Anochi, And he's going to continue on with the Pashta, but everything else is going to have a difference now. The rain is going to not be like the rain was before. It's going to be something that's going to be an agent of destruction now. It's going to separate itself out from the way rain was before and continue in its newly assigned task, if you will. Al haaretz with a katon. Well, remember that katon has two parts to it. It finishes a phrase, and it always tells us that there is two things that we're talking about because it's got the two dots on top of the word aretz. When it will act over the earth, it will equally affect everybody and everything, the guilty and the non-guilty, as pointed out by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. So when we use the word earth, we are talking haaretz umloah, the earth and all that's in it. And this concept, so it's not just punishment of the land itself per se. How do we know that? Because it's got a katon, because it's telling us that there's more than one thing. It's the earth and everything that's contained within it, not just the earth. So having haaretz with another note, we might have had to say it was just the land that this phrase was talking about, but because of the double nature of the katon, we say the earth and everything in it. Arba'im, again, another zakef, another munach. So this is again going to separate itself out from what has gone before and lead forward. 40, being a number connected with the giving of Torah, of maturation, but also with punishment. And as such, it was thought to be applied comparably, as confirmed by the shape of the reading mark. The number of days between Chet HaEgel, the sin of the golden calf, Moses goes up to Mount Sinai, stays there for 40 days and 40 nights, and he gets forgiveness there. And we're also saying that it's not only connected with forgiveness, it's also connected with punishment. The people of Israel, because of the sin of the golden calf, or because of the sin of the spies, have to wander the desert 40 years. So again, 40 seems to be something that tells us of maturation, or the maturation is the word that he uses, of a completion of either an act of forgiveness or an act of punishment. So 40 is a number that is going to take its significance from here on in. It's going to separate itself out from what it might have been before, and it's going to lead forward to tell us that whenever we see that number, we should have a clue that it's dealing with the concept of either forgiveness or punishment. As we'll remember when we had a discussion about Hebrew verbs, that they can mean the thing or its exact opposite. Shoresh means a root, lisharesh means to uproot. So when we have this number 40 and it's being separated out, we can say that 40 from here on in means either 40 of forgiveness or 40 of punishment. And again, in a more esoteric sense, as we discussed in the Dvar Torah before, that things that seem to be punishments, if we take them the correct way, will spur us to change our behavior in the future, and in fact are turned into merits. So if you learn the lesson of having done something wrong, accepted the punishment gracefully, and changed your behavior and attitude so that you would never even think of doing that thing again, that 40 not only was a sin before that has been erased, it becomes a sin that turns into a zchut, that becomes a merit, because you've learned the lesson, integrated it into your personality, and become somebody who it's become so foreign to do that wrong thing again that it becomes a virtue of yours. Yom, with a katon, day. So again, katon is the two dots that's on top of the word yom. So because we have those two dots, we always think that there are going to be two concepts or two things that are going to be illustrated by this note. The light of the day, which was heavily obstructed, was a comparable punishment for the open crimes, which proceeded without obstruction, as specified by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. Which was heavily obstructed. So what he's saying is that we're coming to the 40 days and 40 nights where there's going to be rain. With rain comes clouds. So even though the light of the day is going to be not visible, the crimes that were done when things were visible. We're done in the middle of the day. We're done in the open. We're done with full knowledge of their intent and consequence and so on. So we contrast the two things: the lack of clear day with the sins that were done on a clear day. Ve'arba'im, and 40 with a tipcha. Tipcha is a backwards looking note. It collects something that's come from before. It has a minor pause after it. So it slightly separates itself from the thing after it as well. The 40 days and 40 dark periods of the punishment would be analogous to hidden kinds of offenses, as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. So we'll remember that when we talked about day, we were talking about sins that were done in the open. A sin that's done in the open means that you're not afraid of the people around you. And in fact, you might even want to be influencing the people around you. A sin that's done in the dark means that you're afraid of the people around you, but you're not afraid of divine. You're not afraid of God because you're still doing. The 40 days and 40 dark periods, because we're looking back, that tells us that it's talking about something that also was the sins done during the day. So that's how we can infer that this and 40 refers to the sins done during the darkness, during the night. Night, Laila, with an etnachta. Remember, etnachta has that stable base, possibly with something looking up from it. This will be a commensurate repayment. Commensurate means measure for measure. A measure for measure repayment for concealed misdoings at night, or for all preparatory plans to commit offenses, as illustrated by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So the generation of the flood still would have considered doing the same thing without fear of God, i.e. at night. And we are saying that the repayment will, in a balanced way, match the sin. Their sins were done specifically because they had no regard for God, and their punishment will come measure for measure from God and not from other people. And we have a side note, Arba'im Yom ve'Arba'im Laila, 40 day and 40 night, is related to the expression of the prophet Yirmiyahu, Im lo bariti yomam v'layla, chukat shamayim va'aretz lo shamtu. If not my covenant of order like day and night, laws of heaven and earth not, I could function without the laws of Torah, starting day and night. Okay, so here we have reversed the order of creation by Erev Vahivoker. We have Yomam V'Layla. So principles of creation are also cancelled. So you'll notice in the sentence, it's arba'im yom va'arba'im laila. We have the order of creation, vahi erev, vahi boker. It was night and it was day, reversed. Now we have day and night. So it's like a bracket opening and closing. You have something this way, and then you have the opposite, which says that thing has come to an end. So you take away the one, and then you take away the thing that was given second last, and then you take away the thing that was given first. So this phrasing of arba'im yom arba'im laila is anti-creation. This is saying that creation, which was done in the other order, is going to be closed off, is going to be finished. So whenever we see that phrasing of yom v'laila, not laila v'yom, then we know that this is perhaps a negative connotation or a closing off of something that used to be created. And erasing, or a finishing off of. And we continue, the existence of the world is conditional to human behavior.
Sorry, would that be connected in any way to how we even look at our calendar and all of our traditions and holidays start Erev? They always start night.
They always start that way. Why? Because that's a tribute to creation. Vahi erev vahi boker yom echad. So that's the way the Jewish calendar is formulated, specifically to give tribute to that.
Mm-hmm. So that's one and the same, and then this is talking about the opposite. Okay.
So I'm puzzled because kihim chayim v'arachimenu v'hem negei yomam v'layla. I'm thinking about that and what that means, because that again has yom and laila in this reversed order. So I'll have to ponder on that for the next week and think if I can give an answer to that.
I wonder if the answer is exactly in this last line.
Mm-hmm.
The existence of the world is conditional on human behavior. That is, Hashem created creation before He put creatures on the earth. These were His laws, but He made their continuation contingent on human behavior. And so our behavior, like Hashem sets the rules, Yom V'Laila, but it is our behavior, right, that determines the Laila V'Yom, the continuation, and whether we avert this erasing.
Okay.
Like we can
we
keep
also
it
have,
in
we also have the sense that man is the very last thing that is created. So Yom V'Laila is appropriate for man, in that man is created on the evening of on the afternoon of the sixth day, and if that's the way that people act because they are created during the day, and then are supposed to have gone into the Erev of Shabbos. They're supposed to have gone into that with that devotion. So the phrase the Keim Chayin of Arachimena, that the things of the laws of Torah are our life and the way that we're going to conduct our life, and we will focus on them yomam v'layla. We'll do it day and night. Why? Because we're respecting the human order of creation. Humans were created during the day, and we're supposed to lead into the night of Shabbos in perfect harmony, which we didn't manage to achieve, but we got close. Whereas when we want to focus on divine, we have to say Vahi Erev Vahi Boker.
It's interesting, though, that he says that the existence of the world is conditional on human behavior. So, I mean, God made the laws, God keeps them in stasis, but what encourages Him to keep this in stasis is, I suppose, our behavior. And it makes me think of when the angels were crying out when Rabbi Akiva was being tortured to death, that this great pillar of Torah who brought so much light to the world, is this a fitting end for him? And God said, hush, or I will turn the entire world back into chaos. This must happen. So I think that's also an illustration that somehow our behavior or how we make history unfold keeps creation in stasis.
And certainly the Dor Mabul, the generation of the flood, are a generation who focus on their own deeds and focus on not respecting not only other people but not respecting the Creator, and therefore they are closing the world off. And because they have done that, in essence, everything that was theirs ends up being closed off. Not only them, not only the land, but the laws of nature that